Hi, my name is Thelma and I'm a UX designer and managing consultant at Excella. Many organizations and teams are incorporating human-centered design in their strategy. But what is human-centered design? First, let's talk about a couple of common misconceptions. The first misconception is that human-centered design is asking people what they want. Have you ever asked someone where they want to eat and they reply, I don't know, anywhere's fine. And so you say, okay, great, let's try the new barbecue place down the road. And you might get a response, well, actually, I'm not really in the mood for barbecue. And so you begin listing options: soup, salad, tacos, Thai, and before you know it, you've spent the next 30 minutes trying to figure out where to eat. What you learn from this experience is that anywhere doesn't really mean anywhere. See, the thing is, people don't always know what they want until they hear or see what they don't want. Of course, there's the famous quote by Henry Ford: if I had asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. Another misconception is that human-centered design is user experience, human-computer interaction, user interface, customer experience, and so on. On the surface, perhaps these terms do really appear interchangeably. But many of the before-mentioned practices either have their root in or are driven by human-centered design. See, human-centered design principles can be applied to a broad range of disciplines. Its practices are not confined to just a designer role. So if human-centered design is not asking people what they want, and it's not UX, CX, HCI, or any of the other fancy design acronyms, then what is it? Human-centered design is solving the right problem for real people using a set of guiding principles. The concept and practices of human-centered design span across decades and industries. Don Norman describes the 4 principles of human-centered design as: number 1, focus on the people. It's really important to identify the who. Who is using the product or service? Who are the individuals, groups, and people? Number 2, find the right problem. Often it's easier to jump to and brainstorm solutions rather than digging deep to ensure we've really found the root cause. Number 3, think of everything as a system. So whether we call them components or groups of items, a system is interconnected. No one part can operate on its own, and so we need to evaluate the experience as a whole. Number 4, continually validate and iterate. We may have done a lot of research. We may know a product like the back of our hand. The reality is, we are not the who. We need people to validate the solution so that we can iterate. There are a plethora of activities, tools, and frameworks that help us put these principles into practice. And over the next few minutes, I'll give examples of some of the activities and tools for each principle. Principle number 1, focus on the people. Research is an invaluable way to gain an understanding and to define whom you are designing for. An output of your research can result in personas. Personas can be useful because they help a team focus on an individual. I remember one time I was working on a project and I was first asked if I would meet with 2 groups separately due to conflict. Instead, I proposed that we start with a group exercise of developing personas first, and then if we needed to, we can split it off after that. And what emerged was a set of personas that both groups were able to form ideas and to design around. And the topic of meeting separately never came up again because really we all rallied around who we were designing for. The group saw the individual as the common denominator. Another useful tool is an empathy map or customer journey to help capture how an individual thinks, what their challenges are, as well as what their influences are. Principle number 2, find the right problem. Just like discovering who you are designing for, research is another way to help collect problems. Research can be in the form of interviews, observations, as well as reviewing user feedback. Once you've collected these problems, the 5 whys, credited to Taiichi Ohno, is a tool that can be helpful to find the root cause. The 5 whys allow a team to evaluate the symptoms of a problem by asking why the symptom occurred, eventually getting to the root cause. For example, customers are refusing to pay for their meal. Well, why? Because it arrived cold. Why? Because it sat ready for 20 minutes. Why? Because the waiter didn't know that it was ready. Why? Because the chef has no way to notify wait staff when a dish is complete. This simplified example shows that getting to a root cause takes investigation, and it can involve multiple people to collect the answers. Principle number 3, think of everything as a system. As mentioned, a system is made up of interconnected components that all have impact on each other. So even though we might decide that we're only changing one small piece of a system, that inevitably will have some type of impact. It could be to the whole system or to the experience in another part of the system. And so as we work through a problem and we really begin to ideate, it's really important that we look at the system as a whole. There are a couple of ways in which we can do that. The first one is to gather multiple perspectives. So when we're problem framing or solutioning, we want to gather as many perspectives from the business as possible. The second way that we can approach this is to set human-centered goals. Think about the end goal and the customer journey. Rather than focusing on a single slice of the system, instead, map out the customer journey and determine which parts of a system will likely be impacted by that journey. Principle number 4, continually validate and iterate. A team might be subject matter experts, but problems can be complex and solutions aren't always straightforward. As we said in the beginning, people don't always know what they want until they see what they don't want. Rapid prototyping is one way that teams can gain insight into a proposed solution before it gets developed to help ensure that we're solving the right problem. In modern software development, this can range from quick paper prototypes to high fidelity click-throughs. Conducting usability tests on features within working software is also another way that we can validate a solution. Validation is another opportunity to quickly learn and iterate. People change, organizations change, and therefore systems change. Continually validating and iterating is a critical part of keeping systems modern and human-centered. So how can teams and organizations incorporate human-centered design principles and practices? The key is to start small. Pick one principle and one activity or tool. Perhaps your team starts with principle number 2, solving the right problem. You may choose to use the 5 whys to find the root cause, and then maybe create a problem statement. Then look for ways that keep the team focused on solving the right problem. That might be something as simple as starting every relevant meeting with a problem statement. Because in the shuffle of day-to-day work and back-to-back meetings, it can be really easy to lose sight of the problem. This is just one small step that keeps it at the forefront. So you might be thinking, this seems like a lot. I'd rather leave human-centered design to the designers. I think Nigel Cross said it well when he says, everyone can and does design. We all design when we plan for something new to happen, Whether that might be a new version of a recipe, a new arrangement of the living room furniture, a new lay tour of a personal web page. So design thinking is something inherent within human cognition. It is a key part of what makes us human. Think about how you design your day. It's with you or your colleagues or family at the center. Meetings really depend upon availability. You create time to have conversations with family or friends. Everything is centered around us and the people in our lives. So we must ask ourselves, why when it comes to technology or designing experience, do we think we lack the skill in or take a different approach to human-centered design?